For the best liberty-oriented talk 24/7, visit LRN.FM.
Rand Paul getting beaten within inches of his life, apparently, gave me an idea for a TV series. Wouldn't it be cool if there were a TV series called The Pauls? And I'm talking about like a docudrama going back to the 1950s or 40s. It's one of those docudramas that you know will get better because Rand Paul's life has apparently been more interesting than Ron Paul's even. But this is something that would have a built-in fanatical audience, just like Ron Paul did. For once, such a series would celebrate the relatively good guys in American history. But, you know, there really are a lot of things that deserve documentaries that haven't received them, or I should say docudramas. Well, first,
what tragedies, what horrors.
I will quote what Churchill said about them before I tell you who they were. Quote, "Penned together amid the intricate machinery which crammed their steel cigar-shaped vessels, groping, butting, charging, far below the surface at unmeasured unknown obstructions, surrounded by explosive engines, any one of which might destroy them at a touch, the target of guns and torpedoes if they rose for an instant to the light of day, harried by depth charges, hunted by gunboats and destroyers, stalked by the German U-boat, expecting every moment to be shattered, stifled, or hopelessly starved at the bottom of the sea, and yet, in spite of all, enduring cheerfully such ordeals for weeks at a time, returning unflinchingly again and again through the jaws of death. It is bitter indeed to remember that their prowess and devotion were uncrowned by victory." Unquote. Well, he was talking about something you've never heard of. Yes, you've heard of submarines, and British submarines probably, but he was talking about the wild and improbable successes of some British submarine submariners in the Sea of Marmara, I think is how it's pronounced. This was the part of the Battle of Gallipoli that you never heard about. Basically, this small number of British submarines would go through this passage. Again, this was the passage that basically stopped the British from being able to win the Battle of Gallipoli. So they would go through, the subs would go through this tiny little strait in the Dardanelles, where there was hardly any room to maneuver, and there were obstacles that had put in by the Turks to try to keep them from getting into open water to the north. And the submarines would get stuck in these nets, or they would founder on the ground, the seafloor. They would get captured. All kinds of things would happen, but they kept getting through, and they just wiped out practically the British or the Turkish ships in the Sea of Marmara that were trying to reinforce the defense of Gallipoli. And Churchill claims, and usually you can trust what he says, not always, but he claims that they did it within the rules of the traditional rules of sea warfare, if that makes sense. In other words, it wasn't like what the Germans were doing. It wasn't unrestricted submarine warfare. And I may be exaggerating when they say wiped out. They made a lot of kills. It would be a really interesting story, one of those things that's been overlooked by history. This was in World War I, not the overblown and over-talked-about World War II. My gosh, there must have been 5 movies now about Winston Churchill and the Battle of Britain, or right before the Battle of Britain, and it's just so overdone. You could do a million stories about that guy, or World War I, that they've just been completely ignored, and are really great stories. Better stories. Something else that would make a good movie, well, we'll just call it Ulbricht. I remember seeing a film about a mid-90s hacker. It was absolutely colorful and riveting, and I think this could probably be done with Ulbricht too, although the ending is a lot sadder. Of course, it hasn't really ended yet. Hopefully, when the United States becomes states again, and there's no more federal government, he will be free. I also like the idea of a film or a series, probably better a film, about the Czech occupation of Russia. That's right, I said it, and it's true, sort of. In 1918 or 1919, during the Bolshevik Revolution, the Czechs carved out a huge territory inside Russia. I don't remember what the purpose was. I think it was mainly just holding the Trans-Siberian Railway. But they wound up, well, guess where that takes you? To the other side of Russia. They were in Siberia, and a pretty dominant force. That would be a heck of a story. You even get to put Americans in it, since Americans were part of the intervention. You didn't know Americans occupied part of Russia for a while, did you? And of course, the final, perhaps most speculative docudrama, Nakamoto. It'd be hard to even get the appearance right on that one. But Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin, was the changer of the world. And for once, someone we can fully celebrate, because he wasn't even a government person, apparently. Or at least we can't prove he was. It does seem like with docudramas and TV series that are based on reality, all too often it's the government people that get all the attention. And that's because they're the ones that get to fire the big guns, I guess. And of course, last but not least, my long-term favorite for what a TV series should be about, and that is the Free State Project, of course. You just call it Free State. Definitely lends itself to being more of a series than a movie. Plenty of color, plenty of freak show, some shootings, some killings, a mysterious death. I'm afraid it's got all the ingredients. It's a lot like a real-life version of Big Love. Us Free Staters, generally, I guess we sort of play the role of the Hendricksons. I should probably have emailed the producers of the Big Love series and suggest that they do this, but I haven't gotten around to it. That is all. LRN.FM, 24 hours of Liberty Radio every day. Now available on satellite, too, at sat.lrn.fm. That's what a satellite sounds like. Put it on your unlicensed station. Wear it in your hair. But above all, don't despair. The Liberty message is getting out. And right now, you're missing it. Or maybe you're not. But skip on over to LRN.FM. Feds don't want you to hear them.